about the changes that are underway in society. And quite candidly, even when we visit here to cover the Jeddah Economic Forum, it's not something easy to capture on television, online, or in words, because the scale of the development and competitiveness unleashed in the past 4 years. And it's certainly not without challenges, as we know, for job creation, the challenge of inflation, which is very important today, and developing a single currency, which is probably going to slide past its first target, but is still on the horizon here for the Gulf Cooperation Council countries. Beyond those near-term hurdles lies a vast market that straddles both East and West. That's what I think makes Saudi Arabia so unique. It requires rethinking for real estate and urban development, the umbrella theme, if you will, in our discussions this afternoon and the experts we're going to hear from. To set the tone of our dialogue for that discussion, we have invited His Royal Highness the Prince of Wales to share his insights and passion for fostering urban communities with a keen eye on sustainability. And if you know the Prince, he also has a keen eye on architectural clarity and how it all fits into society with harmonious lines. Ladies and gentlemen, if I can get your attention and your excellencies, let's listen now to the video of Prince Charles of Wales. Thanks.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm very sorry not to be able to join you today in person, but nevertheless, I am delighted to be with you in this somewhat disembodied form at the start of your conference. Now, although I can make no claims to great expertise in the field of economic theory, I do believe that the wider themes you are debating here resonate with issues of major importance that we all need to address. So, if I may start with the theme of real estate, for instance. In so many regions of the world, and particularly here in the Middle East, huge real estate projects are underway. But the challenge I would put to you all is whether we are merely building physical structures or whether we are trying to build communities. The former will have some short-term benefits, but the latter approach is the only way to build true long-term value. In other words, enhanced commercial, social, and environmental value. To do this, there is a need, I think, to escape from the outmoded straitjacket of the conventional zoned approach to planning and to rediscover those well-tried, timeless principles which can assist us to create genuinely humane mixed-use settlements that put the pedestrian at the center of the design process rather than the car. So, when you envision new developments, can we not try to strive for both functionality and beauty so that we satisfy both the material as well as the spiritual needs of our society? Because surely developing economic systems without simultaneous attention to the fabric of our society and to the long-term quality of the environment will leave the world a very much poorer place in which to live. For me, economics and science must go hand in hand with art, culture, and heritage to nourish the whole person. And to ensure these are not just empty words, I've been trying to put these principles into practice myself over the past 15 years or something like that, with the development of a new settlement in the south of England. Here we have tried to marry the best of traditional design with first-class modern construction methods to generate a sustainable community based on a subtle mixture of private housing, rented affordable housing for people on low incomes, commercial properties, shops and offices. Interestingly, as a result, we have seen the long-term value of these properties far outstrip anything in the surrounding local area. I'm now replicating this process elsewhere in the United Kingdom on other sites where I am hoping to repeat these enhanced social, environmental and commercial values. One thing is certain: we cannot afford to go on creating separate ghettos for rich and poor people and at the same time ignoring the damaging environmental impact made by conventional planning and design systems that have passed their sell-by date. In so many ways, what we have been witnessing throughout the 20th century has been a gigantic experiment with humanity, with our built environment, and indeed with nature herself. This experimental approach, now of course thoroughly conventional, has been merely a trend, a fashion. And this fashion is now inherently unfit for purpose. It is not being modern to follow this trend slavishly. Being modern should surely mean that we recognize that circumstances have dramatically changed, that we face new challenges that above all require learning from the mistakes that have caused so many of the problems we now face, and which have so disastrously cut us off from the need to retain a sense of harmony with nature, that cut us off from our own intuitive nature and from the very nature of beauty itself. Now, closer to home, for many of you, you might be interested to know that we have embarked upon a development scheme here in Saudi Arabia, in close cooperation with Saudi colleagues and my Foundation for the Built Environment. We are in the process of designing and establishing a demonstration neighborhood project in Jizan in the Western Province. The neighborhood will, we hope, be an exemplar of a mixed-use, mixed-income community with provision for related facilities, employment, and a mixture of social and market-rate housing, the design of which not only embodies traditional values, architecture, urbanism, materials and skills, but also meets the needs and aspirations of the local community. Following a recent intensive consultation process pioneered by my foundation and called Inquiry by Design, many of the initial ideas have been taken forward, and my foundation, with its Saudi counterparts, are now exploring how best to implement them. We have high hopes that we can recapture some of the traditional identity and cultural heritage of the Arab world in this development, and thus remind people that there is no need whatsoever to ape the West by creating inappropriate versions of downtown Chicago or Dallas throughout the Middle East. Instead, it is possible, if not vital, to blend a unique cultural identity with the necessary modernities in life, and thereby create a renewed sense of pride and meaning in the great Islamic traditions that have given so much to our world in the past. There has been far too much soullessness, ugliness, and loss of identity throughout the 20th century, and indeed all over the world. The time has surely come, ladies and gentlemen, to reverse this trend. So I can only urge those of you who might be interested to come and see what I have been trying to do in the United Kingdom for the past 20 years or so. It would be a great pleasure to show you various projects on the ground. Now, moving on to the subject of energy for a moment, over more years than I can care to remember, I have believed that we must use the world's natural resources responsibly, finding new ways to promote the sustainable development of our natural resources well into the future, particularly in view of the enormously increasing population that will consume the precious resources of this one unique planet. Scientists at last seem to agree that one of the greatest challenges of all is climate change, which until recently was perceived as a problem for the next generation. Nothing could be further from the truth. Revolution is a strong word, but the facts about greenhouse gas emissions, deforestation, and overconsumption of dwindling natural resources are abundantly and frighteningly clear, with scientists ever more concerned that tipping points may occur within the next 10 years, or even sooner, which will affect irretrievably the Earth's habitability for humans. They are now saying the problem is so grave and so urgent that we have less than 10 years to slow, stop, and indeed reverse greenhouse gas emissions. That is why actions in each and every country are urgently required to protect and nurture the common inheritance that has been given to us by our Creator. Now, one of the most vital priorities of all must be to halt tropical deforestation, which is estimated to be responsible for about 20% of global greenhouse gas emissions. Only the power generation sector emits more. It is important to recognize, ladies and gentlemen, that these forests, in effect, provide the world's greatest public utilities. In other words, they regulate our temperature, clean our air, and produce our rainfall. When you think about it, we pay for our gas, water, and electricity, but somehow we must develop innovative and imaginative ways of paying for the great global utilities provided by the rainforests. As a matter of real urgency, we simply have to find innovative ways of making them more valuable, alive than dead, and therefore I have decided, probably very rashly, but solely because I fear for the future of our children and grandchildren, to see whether I could play a part in seeking some kind of solution to this global problem through drawing on 23 years of involvement in encouraging corporate social responsibility and building partnerships between the private, public and NGO sectors. Never before has the world needed so badly this partnership approach in order to meet the immense and critical challenges we all face. Ladies and gentlemen, this conference brings together a wealth of talent and expertise drawn from such diverse sectors as science, industry and, of course, government. Working together, I hope you will be able to lay still more of the groundwork and that this work can be followed up over the months ahead. Real, sustainable advances on a global level will need both time and commitment, not just from Europe, not just from the Middle East, but from across the globe. I'm convinced that with a sense of visionary energy, this is achievable. Such progress will need individual leadership, and this conference would appear to provide just the sort of lead that is required. So, ladies and gentlemen, I can only wish you every possible success over the coming days.
It's true, whether it's at the Jeddah Economic Forum or at the World Economic Forum, we've seen a profound shift in thinking, and even in the Prince himself, partially because of the partnerships he's established here in the Gulf and specifically with Saudi Arabia. But the shift from aesthetic beauty, architectural beauty in a city like London, to the impact of building and structures on greenhouse gas emissions. It's something I learned in the past week, that it ranks #1 in terms of the ability to reduce global greenhouse gas emissions by addressing the problems we have in buildings and structures today. And as we talk about the field of dreams and what's being built here today, keep that at the forefront of our thinking in terms of designs and training and creating jobs for the future. Before we move on to our next speaker, I wanted to go back to a session that we had this morning. You all remember quite fondly, I'm sure, the youth highlights that were played through